Hello, Buckeye fans, and welcome to what we would call an off week, but Ohio State is not calling it an off week, Dave. I'm Patrick Murphy, Dave Biddle. We're reacting to Ryan Day and Jim Knowles' press conference we just got done right over there in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. So yeah, Dave, they are calling it an improvement week, something we heard after the game from a few of the guys, but that was a focus of the press conference there, not a bye week.
I like that. Right. A lot of people are like, well, it's not a bye week, it's an off week. And people are like, well, we don't need to be like too specific here. It's just a football vernacular bye week. Or is it an off week? And Ryan Day's like, it's an improvement week. I like that. Especially coming off what was a near perfect performance against Western Michigan. He doesn't want his guys thinking, okay, we're where we need to be. He's made it clear today. He was very businesslike again, just like he was last week. If somebody kind of was joking with the question, he wasn't like smiling back. He wasn't being a jerk. He just was being very direct and very businesslike, which I love. But they know, and Ryan Day said this, like it's going to get much, much, much harder. It's a long season, and yeah, they're happy with where they're at right now, but they want to make sure they practice hard today, tomorrow, and Thursday. He's going to give the guys off Friday and Saturday. So that'll be nice for the guys. After they get off Thursday, they'll have all Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night to even go home if they want to before they have to come back on Sunday. So yeah, I like what he said about it being an improvement week.
Yeah, and it is a weird year. If you haven't looked ahead on the Buckeyes schedule, they have another off week against Oregon. So having two, which happened I think 4 years ago, is nice, but having it so early, like you don't really need it at this point. Guys aren't banged up, even the guys that have played quite a bit. It's not like you've played a tough opponent. So there's not the need to give guys rest when you know that bigger challenges are coming down the road. Cody Simon said after the game on Saturday that the way they phrase in the linebacker room is they're not taking the sugar. They don't want to buy into the hype of anything at this point.
Rat poison, as Coach Saban would call it, right?
You mentioned something. We'll get back to this in a second with Jim Knowles, but you mentioned Ryan Day and his seriousness. That caught my attention last week. Do you think this is an intentional change from Coach Day? Because in the offseason, even this during fall camp, I felt you got the same, not always joking with the media, but he does, you're right, smile at questions and things like that. And that approach has noticeably changed during the season. Do you think this is intentional by him to try and get everybody focused and kind of send out a message through his press conferences?
I think he probably did say that to himself. Like, I'm the leader of this ship. I'm the captain of this ship. I'm going to set the example that this is a business-like adventure, business-like venture. We are, you're supposed to have fun playing football, and they are having fun. But when you had most fun playing football is when you win.
Right.
All right, so I do. I think he did. I don't think it was something that was, he made a list and that was like the top of the list. I have to be serious at press conferences, but I do think it was something that he told himself because I've noticed a big difference with him. Again, though, to be clear, he's still being very, very courteous with us and giving us great answers. Like I asked him a question today, he gave a very long answer, very insightful. He's great to deal with as a media guy. He's great to deal with, and from an Ohio State, if you're an Ohio State fan, which I'm sure you're watching this, I would love this because your head coach is locked in. He just seems completely mentally locked in, and I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it almost feels Urban Meyer-esque in terms of the way he's delivering some of these press conferences, giving answers, probably better answers at points than what Urban did, but this is a season that just feels different, and we've said that kind of all along with the talent and whatnot. And I feel like this is part of Coach Day's approach, which has changed. He talked about not having the play calling duties, and we've talked about that a lot, but I thought it was interesting. He said he can be more himself on the sidelines when he's not trying to look ahead and getting in on the defensive stuff. He's letting everyone else do it. I think that's another change for him that if you're watching him at the games or when they cut to him on TV, it's a different demeanor. And there was one example of a Brandon Innes catch that I think didn't get called a completion, and he was arguing with the officials about it. He said, well, when you're trying to call that next play, you don't have time to go argue with the officials about it. Now he's able to fight for his guys. I like this.
I like it too. And we talked all offseason. He's going to be more of a CEO now. We can say that till we're blue in the face, but we're seeing it materialize. He is now the CEO of this football team. He doesn't have to worry about, like Patrick just illustrated. You don't have to sit there and worry about calling the next play and doing everything, running the offense and running the team. Most of the best head coaches, not all, most of the best head coaches are CEOs. Again, not all. And still have heavy input on one side of the ball. Like Nick Saban's a great example Alabama. I mean, he had Kirby Smart as his defensive coordinator at one point, as Ohio State fans know from the 2014 season. But seriously, Kirby Smart's gone on to be a pretty good head coach, and he was a defensive coordinator. I'm sure Saban was heavily involved on that side. In fact, I know he was heavily involved. But what was Saban? The ultimate CEO.
Right.
And I think Ryan Day is now becoming that. I'm not saying he's Nick Saban, but you're seeing him be that CEO, still heavily involved with what they're doing offense, but he couldn't have a better offensive coordinator than Chip Kelly. It's still unbelievable to me that Chip Kelly's the offensive coordinator of this team. And you're seeing the results. I mean, the offense has never been an issue here since Ryan Day's been here. It's now just been enhanced. Some of these new concepts, and Ryan Day got into this. We're going to have a story on that on the site soon. It'll be the first question in the video for Ryan Day, and he gets into some of the new concepts that Chip Kelly's brought to the table with some of the RPO stuff and some of the outside zone runs and just run concepts in general. So, I love this coaching staff. Jim Knowles, 3rd year's defensive coordinator. Now Chip Kelly is offensive coordinator. You go on and on and on. He's compiled a hell of a good coaching staff. And there's not the dead weight that there was. There's always was like elite guys on the staff, but then it was like, oh, but Parker Fleming's the, special teams coach. It's like we're seeing the improvement on special teams. It's like, yeah, Corey Dennis is the quarterback's coach. Now Chip Kelly is basically the quarterback's coach, right? All the guys are chipping in on special teams. So there's no dead weight, and there's a lot of just great weight.
Jim Knowles, we talked with him as well. You mentioned him. He was asked, you give up 6 points in the first game. You had a shutout in the second game. The opponent hasn't gotten in the red zone to this point. Like, yeah, it's an improvement week, but what are you improving on? And he had an answer. He has areas that he thinks they need to improve on.
Yeah, and he started with fundamentals, and he mentioned, he didn't use the same phrase, but that Ryan Day used, but Jim Knowles used the phrase when we get to our matchup games. Yep. I mean, when we get to games that teams can actually hang with us, even if we're playing sloppy. Because he mentioned, there might be times where the play looked good, the play was effective these first 2 games for the defense, for Ohio State's defense. But he's noticed, if it was a matchup game, maybe they're a little late doing this. They got to clean up this a little bit more. So they're just going to try and tweak things, just get things, keep things getting a little sharper for the Buckeyes. They're happy with where they're at, but they know very well the tough games are coming. And now there might be more tough games than we thought. I was guilty of saying during the offseason, it's basically a 4-game regular season with Iowa, and that's if you're being kind to Iowa, Oregon, Penn State, Michigan. And now do we have to throw Nebraska in there? Dare do I say we throw Indiana in there? Maybe not Indiana, although I do think Indiana's a solid team. But Nebraska actually looks good. Now, they look good against 2 bad teams, but still. But yeah, I like what Jim Knowles said about that, because he knows there's going to be some tough games down the road. Even if they get by the regular season like we think they will, their goal is to win the national championship. So they need to keep getting better. There's no doubt about it. He was asked about C.J. Hicks and if there's a chance they could put him at defensive end. He said, yeah, there's a chance we could do that. The thing is, they're deep at defensive end too. Like, who are you taking off the field? You're taking Jack Sawyer, J.J. Tuimoloau. They like their backups with Caden Curry, Kenyatta Jackson, Mitchell Melton. So, he said, the guys get hurt at defensive end. Maybe we could look into that. But they need, Coach Day talked about this too, they need C.J. Hicks to be a linebacker right now. They love what the other guys are doing, though, with Cody Simon, Arvell Reese. Sonny Styles is coming off a good game. Gabe Powers is playing well. So they're happy with what's going on at linebacker.
Consistency continues to be the word mentioned with C.J. Hicks. So if he can put it all together, obviously there's a player there. It's just, and Ryan Day said they see it in practice, so we have to take his word for that. You did mention the schedule. Are we still taking Michigan, Penn State, Iowa after losing to Iowa State as seriously as maybe we were at the beginning of the season? We knew Michigan would take a step back, but Penn State barely beats Bowling Green. Iowa loses. Oregon struggled in both games they've played. Do you reevaluate maybe what are the toughest games, or do you think those teams are going to work through those and still be as tough as you thought?
Yeah, it's just interesting because those teams might not be as good as anybody thought. I thought Michigan would take a pretty big step back. Penn State's interesting because they looked really good against West Virginia, and then they struggled against Bowling Green. Now, Bowling Green might end up being one of the better teams in the MAC this year with Connor Bazelak at quarterback. They were a good team last year, a bunch of guys back. So maybe Bowling Green's going to be one of the better teams in the MAC. And maybe Penn State had a little bit of a letdown because West Virginia, that was a big opener, and a lot of people, myself included, thought it would be a close game. Penn State would win, but West Virginia would cover. It was like a 7.5-point spread. Penn State waxed them 34-12. So maybe there's a little bit of a letdown factor. And here's the thing. Do I think Penn State's going to compete for the national championship? No. I think there's still a chance they'll get in the playoffs. In fact, they probably will be like one of those final teams to get in if I had to guess. So I don't think they're going to compete for the national championship. But one game in Happy Valley against Ohio State, who they look at as their #1 rival, I'm glad it's not at night. So that'll always, until the Buckeyes have that game in hand, I think that'll be one that, yeah, I need to see Ohio State do it, because Penn State could rise up and have a great game, and they have the talent to do it. Michigan, listen, I mean, anything can happen in the game, but I think they're in big trouble when they come here. Iowa doesn't look good. They have to come here. I think Iowa's defense can keep them in the game here for a while, but Ohio State, 60 minutes, Ohio State's going to have too much for them. They'll overwhelm them. Oregon, they have not looked good, but that's going to be a tough game in Eugene. That's going to be their biggest home game in whatever. I mean, it's going to be huge. And then Nebraska, I mean, we'll see. I don't know yet. I haven't really sat down and watched them. It looks good, but Colorado, it's kind of the same thing. Nebraska's better than what they've been. They got waxed by Colorado last year. So Nebraska's definitely on the uptick. I think it's good for the Big Ten that Nebraska's ranked.
Yeah.
I think Matt Rule is a good coach. Dylan Raiola might be the real deal. So maybe Nebraska. Again, I'm glad that game's in Columbus, though.
Yeah, that will be interesting, seeing Dylan, who I once interviewed right there, coming back to Columbus and playing at Ohio Stadium for a different Big Ten team. Last thing, Dave, Jim Knowles was asked about the comfort of having Lathan Ransom and Caleb Downs as his two safeties. And, he said, you don't ever take anything for granted, but you do just trust that they're going to get the job done. I think he also mentioned they haven't unleashed really them yet. Lathan Ransom, we've seen come on a couple blitzes. I think a lot of people are kind of wondering when you'll get to see Caleb Downs be the player that led Alabama in tackles. I know he missed 3 tackles in the opener, but I think the way they use him, moving him around a bit, has been interesting. Your thoughts just kind of on having those two experienced guys, talented guys on the back end of that defense?
Yeah, it's such a luxury. I really think they're the best safety tandem in the country. If there's a better one, let me know. I would love to see it. And they complement each other well. Lathan's that true strong safety.
You want to see these guys be the best.
Well, no, I want to see. I just basically, that's a figure of speech.
Yes.
Show it to me, because I don't believe that there is a better one out there. And they complement each other so well. Lathan, the veteran, the true strong safety. Not that Caleb couldn't play strong safety, but Lathan, 210 pounds, rocked up, 5th-year senior. Then you got Caleb Downs, as athletic as you could be, tough, true free safety, but not just a guy that's going to be back there as a center fielder. What have we seen? As Patrick said, they're moving him around a lot. He's blitzing. You got a free safety that's out there blitzing, and quite effectively, I might imagine. And they haven't really mixed in much. I think they blitzed him once or twice. But when they play like teams like Oregon and Penn State, they're going to be really mixing things up. We've been talking about Chip Kelly. He's a mad scientist. Jim Knowles is too. I love both these coordinators. So, yeah, they're in a really, really good position as far as safety. I still can't believe it. I thought Lathan Ransom would go pro after last year. Not that he would have been an early pick, but he had coming off 2 injuries. The one he had in the Rose Bowl, and then this last one with the Liz Frank injury. He was a 4th-year guy. I thought, he'll probably go and be a 3rd-day pick. He comes back, I'm like, wow. Then you get Caleb Downs in the transfer portal. Are you kidding me? Malik Hartford is a backup. Jalen McClain is a backup. I love what they have at safety. I don't know how you could not.
Yep. All right, we're going to wrap it up. We're going to head home. Already, you can Steve is uploading the videos from the press conference, so those should be up if you haven't seen them already. We'll have plenty more on the site. I wrote about the improvement week this morning, so that's up there, and yeah, we'll have plenty more. It is not an off week for the Buckeyes, not really an off week at Bucknuts either. We're still working. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll be back later this week. See you guys.
Stuff.